Hi, Denise Matteau here for the Visions of Mercy channel. This is another video about spiritual warfare. A very, very deep and increasingly real, common form of spiritual warfare. I'm putting links in the description. There's a channel that you can look up the death, the murder of a young woman named Tiffany Jenks. Okay, I'm putting links. She's got her mourner, a young man who knew her, has set up a channel explaining what happened. There's another young woman. Now she was killed, Miss Jenks was killed in 2013. And a very suspiciously mishandled homicide investigation occurred. The other young woman is a young woman named Immette St. Immette St. was killed in 2006. She was a student in New York studying for her master's degree in criminal justice. The third young woman is my daughter, who was known as Faith Jackson at the time of her death. Her legal name, her birth name, was Sojourner Margaret Matteau Jackson. And she was killed while studying for her master's in psychology. She was killed on the UMass Amherst campus. And UMass lied to the family and to the state police in order to prevent a homicide investigation. I only know about Tiffany Jenks through the media that I've noticed. There was a story about her on one of my favorite radio shows, the Capt show, and I've had some internet conversation with the mourner. John Capt is his name. He has a channel in YouTube. There are some very common elements between what happened to Miss Jenks and what happened to Immette St. Now, I actually know very little about Immette St. and there's a lot on the internet that I haven't looked at. I've only recently found out how much there is out there. The only reason I even know her name is that she was a student who knew a certain man, Captain Tom White, a state police captain who was doing educational programs around gangs, cults, and animal torture rituals. He was working in that field in the 1990s. He died around 2000. He died in the line of duty. There's a link about him in the description. And I knew him because I was one of the parents who were working with a man a lot of people know as Dale Griffiths, one of the original leaders of what came to be called the Satanic Panic. And he introduced me to Captain White because I wanted to get out of that whole movement. I was tired, I was upset, I was burned out. I felt like I had gotten my daughter safely out of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Berkshire County, Massachusetts is one of the strongholds of the Satanic movement. And I moved to Boston. My daughter was successfully started on her adult life, and I wanted out. So I told Mr. Griffiths, I said, I'm done. I'm burned out. He then introduced me to Captain White to give him the materials that I had collected. And Captain White was able to use them in some very important cases. I'm going to do a video about that because my materials were showing planning and premeditation on the part of the Massachusetts Department of Education in preparing teachers to introduce satanic sacrifice into the school system. And it wasn't just Massachusetts, it was national. And it was in researching Captain White's death, because I was putting together, I was trying to get a memorial set up for him, and I was running into weird resistance. And it was in doing that research that I came across the name of Immette St, who was a murder victim after she decided, and I believe was largely inspired by Captain White, to study criminal justice. Now, at that point, it was just simply, oh, how sad. I really knew there was no significance to that for me. However, in 2010, my daughter was still alive. She was a young adult. She was working as a yoga teacher. She became a certified yoga teacher. She'd been involved in all kinds of arts and theater, and she was working in Massachusetts. And I was suddenly receiving really weird, hateful, and ugly internet messages from a man who was trying to locate her. A man who worked for a very, I believe today, to be a satanic death squad. It's a cult that fights other cults. It's an anti-cult cult. It used to be called the Rick Ross Institute. Nothing to do with the rap artist. This guy, Rick Ross, is a different Rick Ross. You may know him by looking into the Waco massacre. He's the anti-cult expert who persuaded the ATF and other members of the government how to do the siege that we know resulted in the massacre of more than 80 people burned alive. And it's very controversial what his role in that was. He employs people to stalk people that his organization is being paid to target as cult members. And it's a business, and you can go to his website and see. He now owns culteducation.com. It used to be the Rick Ross Institute. And suddenly his employee starts sending me messages in Facebook under a variety of profiles, all using names taken from a novel by Christian evangelist Dave McKay. Dave McKay and his wife and a group of maybe 24 followers used to travel around the country, living in their RVs, passing out copies of his end times, his apocalyptic novel, Survivors. Okay, and he had it was a rebuttal novel to try to rebut the heresies that are in the Left Behind series. So McKay was a very strong believer, preacher, leader, whatever you want to call him. But basically, it's like he was a street preacher with a book. And Rick Ross Institute was assigned to take his group down because he was traveling around the country recruiting followers like any traveling preacher does. So the Rick Ross Institute was being paid. And this man who was using names from his novel was working that project and had started to come after me because I defended the right of McKay's group to just be street Christians. I mean, it's a free country. And he starts looking for my daughter. Suddenly he sends me a copy of Immette St. obituary, the obituary that was on the front page in the Boston Herald. He sends this to me in Facebook. I've still got the screen prints of the whole mess. My daughter was still alive, so at that point I still thought I was just dealing with a freaky internet creep. I tried to get the police to talk to him, but they wouldn't take it seriously because they was like, hey lady, the guy's just an internet troll. Get off the computer and take a walk. That was their attitude. But I can prove that police did get a little bit concerned because I was able to contact police closer to where she worked and ask them to please, I'd sent them a picture of the guy and explained why it was so serious. And because they knew about Immette St. it was a famous murder. Police in Texas didn't care what happened to her. But in Massachusetts, they knew. And when I explained how that had been sent to me, they were concerned and they stepped up patrols looking for this guy. They were going to try to get him in the act if he showed up near where she worked. So I know there's memories and records of that. But I didn't want to alarm her, so I didn't tell her that this guy was looking for her because it was like, hey, Ma, keep your crazy drama to yourself. That's all it was at that point, was crazy drama. A couple months later, I got the news that she was found dead in her dormitory. And UMass lied to me, lied to the rest of the family, and lied to the state police in order to absolutely prevent any kind of homicide investigation. They claimed it was suicide. It was not suicide. She died a violent death. They led me to believe she had OD'd on some pills, but she died a violent death. I don't want to go into the details here, but I know it was not suicide. Of course, they didn't want to be embarrassed. That's all they cared about. But these three people, and then there's the other one, Tiffany Jenks, okay? There's a link about her. She was murdered in Oregon. She was someone who had something to say about things going on at work. So she wasn't a criminal justice fighter like Immette St. She wasn't, as far as I know, related to anyone like my daughter was related to me. And partly these satanics, if they can't get you, they'll go after your kids. And there's a point where there's nothing you can do. Your kids get tired of your worries when you know that the family is targeted. And they not only get tired of it, they blame you because I did bring this on us. I did speak up. The links are in the description. Spiritual warfare. This is the kind of spiritual warfare we are facing in America today. We are facing an extremely active political, it's a Democrat Party, the progressives. These are the brown shirts. These are the stormtroopers. It's a death squad. And we can only fight it with prayer. And they can laugh at me for saying this. But they didn't get my daughter's soul. And they didn't get Immette St. soul, and they didn't get Tiffany Jenks' soul. We need to all educate ourselves about what's going on. We need to understand spiritual warfare. We need to look at what's going on in our country today, in the whole world. And we need to do what we can in the spot where God put us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Denise Matteau for Visions of Mercy. Over and out.